welcome back. We're talking today about something that, okay, here's the thing. In my mind, I have a whole conspiracy theory that I'm going to put together with you, and we're going to see if it just shakes out, okay? It's about girl bosses, and my hypothesis that girl bosses gave way to trad wives.
I believe it.
You believe it?
I can support this hypothesis.
Thank you. So we will have a thesis statement by the end of today's episode. But before we get there, I have a question for you. Describe your best day to me.
Oh, my best day. Like, is it a day that has happened or a day that I want?
That you want to create. If you had to create your best day, what would it look like?
It would involve a beach.
Ooh.
It would involve a book. It would involve my kids playing for part of the day.
Okay.
It would involve a nap. It would involve some good food. It would involve friends and family. What about you?
I'm just say something. Outside of your kids playing, you just described your 40th birthday trip to Tulum.
It was pretty amazing.
So I can concur.
I was a happy person then.
Yes, we had a good time. So my perfect day, it would involve definitely a spa.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
Maybe one of those Korean body scrubs that we like.
Shopping.
It would involve, but you know what? I get so much pleasure these days out of window shopping. Touching the thing, talking about the thing, like connecting with staff at my favorite spots. It's really sad because some of my closest friends have become luxury retail associates.
That's sad.
Well, I go in there and I just sit down and talk to them for hours.
Because you're passionate about the product. It's like your PhD in like leather goods.
Exactly. I am collecting research for my dissertation, so I'll do that.
Okay.
Collect research.
Would it be city? Would it be like what?
Oh, this is good. It would be Miami for me. I would be staying at either Faena or Edition.
Okay.
Okay. I would have one of those sweet ass rooms that obviously overlooks the water.
I looked at Edition when we were thinking about going to Miami.
Isn't Edition so?
I don't know. It looks amazing.
It is eye-wateringly expensive, but one day that will not be true for us because we're manifesting wealth. And I would like go out party, get lit.
Okay.
That night, yeah. And also friends, family. And I say Florida because I could make sure that I got some like Miami-based music in, which is, not relevant in all parts of the country.
It's hard when you put it like in a day because a day's not that long.
Yeah,
to do all the things.
Margo,
but if you had one day left.
YOLO, dog.
Yeah.
See, okay, if this was my last day on Earth.
If it was my last day on Earth, I wouldn't nap, okay? I would give up the nap.
I actually think you would.
No,
Napping has become a high priority for you, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot about just like bringing it down, Shy. Just bring it down, man. It don't take all that. Margo's napping. Why are you like losing your opposable thumb? Because you're on social, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm doing a million things.
I feel so. That's amazing. I feel like I never teach you anything.
No, you do. You teach me stuff all the time.
That's so nice. But one day, it's like one day.
I know.
But it's a good exercise to do.
But I want to add something because when you put in last day, I would also do a lot of drugs.
Me too.
Yeah. What drugs would you do if it was your last day on Earth?
Well, it's not like all at the same time.
For sure.
Okay, so I would do some MDMA.
Ooh, I've never done that.
Yeah.
But I've heard it's a good time.
It's fun.
Okay.
You can listen to any music and it doesn't make you anxious. That's my experience.
Very important.
I would I mean, the problem is with drugs, right? Like the good drugs. They take a long time.
To hit your system.
Right, and to work through your system. So like
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Oh, I would do like MDMA and ketamine and psilocybin," but like you can't do all that
shit.
together.
So maybe you got a pregame. You have to pregame for the last day on Earth. And then so you start early.
Like the day before.
The day before, like the night before, you be like, "Bitch, I'm going to get it in tomorrow. So let me just hit the ground running with a little bit of ketamine."
Okay, I would do the ketamine the day, have a really good night's sleep, and
I
then
love
do
this.
MDMA.
The next day.
Mm.
Oh, this is good. Okay. All right. I'm learning a lot. See, I was gonna go for the hard drugs. This is what I would do. Based
Meth?
based upon my research on soft white underbelly,
Mm.
I've learned a lot about narcotics and other drugs. So I would start the day with cocaine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too, me too.
Okay, I would start the day. Actually, I might start there with a little crack. I'll start there with a little bit of
But,
crack.
like, if you have crack, are you gonna, like, enjoy breakfast?
But see, that's good.
Because you need a good breakfast.
Like, what
for
about your
our last-
avocado toast?
and your good green juice.
And
and your nice coffee. And, like,
No,
your
that's
newspaper
right.
and stuff.
But the reason I would start with crack is because crack is in your system for such a short period of time.
Oh.
Yeah, crack is quick. And then I would go to cocaine. And then to bring it down, I would go to heroin.
Oh, I would not do heroin on my last day.
Are you serious?
No.
Oh, you don't want to be knocked out.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you don't want to sleep through.
I don't want to drool.
Speaking of a nap.
I can do that without the heroin, thank you.
I don't
Wait,
wanna
why are
drool.
we talking about this? How did we get here?
Margo, listen, Donald Trump was president.
True.
We don't know what could happen in the future, and I want to be prepared for the last day on Earth.
Okay, same.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, would you wear tight clothes or loose clothes?
Oh, comfort is key.
Oh, me too.
I'm being Cotopaxied down
Same.
for my last day on Earth.
I'm actually going to be wearing, depending on the season, my last day on Earth is not the winter. Winter is not my favorite. But if it is the winter, I'm bathed in cashmere.
Okay.
If it's the summer, linen.
No, I'm gonna take you up a notch. How about this? We're gonna be in the cashmere that they sell down at Laurel Piana because it is woven with aloe to make it extremely soft on your skin.
So you wear it in the summer?
No. You wear it in the winter, but it's like an elite. It's called a noble fabric. Yeah, so we're gonna do that.
Me
We're gonna
and
wear
all
that.
the secession boys
And
down
our
at the
Laurel.
down at the hedge fund, running the
institute.
systems.
Well, shit. Speaking of cocaine, that's where we could find it on our last day on Earth.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
I don't know why we're talking about that.
Okay. This is so sometimes we have kind of things that fit under the dumb shit men say umbrella, but aren't actually coming from a particular person. It might be the dumb shit that a system has done, the racist things that have happened,
Right.
the sexist thing. This is literally the dumbest shit I think a man has said. So here we go. Margo, if I say BOOSIEBADAZZ, that's me. Do you know where that comes from?
No, but I can spell. So it's boozy baddies. I'm assuming it's a singer, but I don't know. Right?
It is a hip hop hooked on phonics version of one of Boosie Badass's very popular lines from a hit from the early 2000s called Wipe Me Down, which may be where some of our viewers and listeners have heard of one known as Lil Boosie. Now, he existed before that time, but that has been like the probably groundbreaking hit of one known as Lil Boosie.
Is
Now-
he still famous?
Yes, but not for music.
Okay.
So Lil Boosie is from, I think, Baton Rouge, from Louisiana for sure. Spent quite a few years at the Angola State Prison. And he came home to a markedly different world, is what I would like to say. And when he came home, his claim to fame on the internet was pretty much being what I would call a cultural critic in some very problematic ways. Like, he would take to social media and go on rants about his kind of viewpoints on society, and giving him a little bit of grace. I think some of the things that he said that have been very problematic, homophobic, transphobic at the least, have likely also been a result of the fact that he missed maybe 10 years of the world changing in some ways. And so,
Well, maybe the world. Okay. I wouldn't say the world changed.
rhetoric maybe
Yeah.
about certain things.
Right.
What was PC to say
Right.
and what was not, maybe.
Okay.
This is me being my most gracious.
You're being
because
very generous because it wasn't okay to say homophobic things like 15 years ago.
it was never okay. But my thing is that he missed the inclusivity that we have been pushing towards. And I think this is very critical in the Black community, Margo, that continues to be politically progressive and kind of socially conservative,
Mhm.
especially shrouded under the name of the Christian church.
Jesus.
Because Jesus evidently wanted division.
And heterosexism.
Yeah, that's what they would say. And so, yeah, he came home and had a lot to say about these things. And Most specifically, however, this brings us to the dumb shit that he said. This is what he said on a platform known as X, aka Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, I should
Formerly.
say. On January 2nd, 2024, he said, I'm gonna talk like him. I had to walk out this Color Purple movie, and two other older couples walked out also because I had my little girls with me and it seemed like a rainbow, but we know he means gay. Love story. 2 exclamation points. Good acting, but whoever wrote the script is pushing the narrative hard. As a parent, I will not let my little girl watch this film. What say you, friend?
I mean, there's a lot there, but like depending on the ages of his children, it wasn't an appropriate movie because of the rape.
From the beginning.
There was a lot of rape in that movie and violence and fear-inducing things for a small child. I mean, it's a heavy movie.
It is a heavy movie. And I don't know, I have not seen the musical adaptation. So I don't
either.
know how much of that comes across
Right,
on
so
screen.
we don't know, I guess, but we know the story.
We know enough about he went into the movie knowing the plot. So yes, that is a part of Alice Walker's story that he knew would exist in some way.
But I mean, it's obviously very homophobic, but like it just seems like funny that like the queerness of the story versus the rapiness of the story is what really set the stage for the inappropriateness for his child.
Let's go back, because this is really important to me. Steven Spielberg has gone on record, and I think he was one of the producers of this adaptation. We know him to have been, however, the director of the first film that starred Whoopi Goldberg and Danny Glover. He has said that he actually was uncomfortable at the time the movie came out, displaying the love story that is very clearly, Margo, depicted in the book between Celie and Mr. I mean, if you asked Alice Walker, and I don't know if anyone has, I would love to hear her take on this, she probably would categorize the film as a queer love story. What Steven Spielberg put on film was a story about assault and sexual, it was this story of abuse and assault, and just the hardness of a life of Black women in the South at that time. And besides this one kiss that Celie and Suge Avery had, that was all we saw. However, that's not what Alice Walker's point or the summation of the plot was of the book. And so what I understand is that this director said he wanted to go back to the roots and make sure that that tenderness and that love was on display.
I mean, I don't know why this person has a platform.
Girl. Well,
and I don't understand. I mean, I guess what's so problematic is that I'm assuming he has a lot of followers and a lot of people are listening to him about what is appropriate and how to parent, and that showing queer love is somehow inappropriate.
And this is why I talk about the Black community in particular, because do the fuck better. There are people who loudly will proclaim what you just said, and it is despicable, because the undercurrent of it being a queer love story is that it's a love story, and there is nothing positive that can be said about sexual assault and rape. Nothing. And the torturous abuse that was on display in the book and possibly also in this adaptation. But also, why does Labusi get to be like the bastion of morality?
And why is he the bastion of parenting and parenthood?
Of either. Now, he hasn't had a song in a long time, maybe a verse here or there. But last time I checked, his music is about dope dealing and killing. That's just what it is. Now, some might say it's a reflection of his environment. Either way, that is what his music is about.
It doesn't matter if it's a reflection of his environment. That's fine. But then what? But I don't understand. Like, do a lot of people listen to him?
They do. So, Good question. Couple things. Number one, I want to go back to the why save a platform. He is only on X
X.
because he was deplatformed from Instagram.
Okay, well that says a lot.
Largely because of him getting into it with Lil Nas X back and forth about
Him being
queer. Yeah, and he felt like Lil Nas X at some point, I think the last straw was he felt like Lil Nas X should not have performed at like some hip hop awards thing because he wasn't true hip hop because he was openly queer.
Mhm.
So Instagram had it with his shits, kicked him off. He hasn't been back. So he had to go to X for this because we know
Right, well,
Elon Musk loves the hatred down at the institution. But to your point about set platform, this is what, and I want to end here because I think we have to center the voice of a Black trans woman. And it's a woman named T.S. Madison, who is an activist and entertainer, a trans woman. And she said, so Lil Boosie, you sat there with your daughter while Celie's father or daddy took her second child that he fathered and gave it to the pastor and his wife. You sat there with your daughter while Mr. came and bought her from her daddy at 14 years old. You sat there with your daughter while Mr. enslaved Celie to cook and clean his nasty house with his children. You sat there with your daughter and watched Mr. beat, sexually destroy, and drag Celie all over the floor. You sat there with your daughter and watched Mr. bring his side chick into the house with Celie. But you got up to leave when you saw Celie finally find love and compassion and some sort of temporary relief from Mr.'s prison. Then you try and come to social media and bring the What About the Kids campaign you've been on and attempt to use God to justify you and the people who stand with you. And they call us delusional. Sir, the character you play in real life is Mr. The daddy, the pastor, and all the other men who abused Celie in that movie. And have the nerve to finally be concerned about what a kiss would do to influence, quote unquote, your daughter. There is truly some intervention needed in your life to sort out these homosexual demons you're fighting.
Boom. Mic drop.
The that on that one known as Miss T.S. Madison.
Whoa.
All right, let's jump into girl boss culture. What does being a girl boss mean to you, Margo?
Well, to me, I hate. So, I think the term has been is that the pathologized?
Yeah,
Is that
for sure.
Right. I mean, I think of it as having been the term conceived within the lean in movement with Sheryl Sandberg, and like you just need to lean in as a woman in the workplace, and if you lean in, then you can make it to the top no matter what. If you have children, if you don't have children, like you just lean in because women aren't leaning in, and that's why women aren't getting where they want to get professionally.
Yeah.
And then girl boss to me is an extrapolation of the lean in narrative with the beginning of social media and like online content creating and online businesses.
Ooh, okay.
So I conceive of girl boss as like people who've started their own online business.
Oh, or like this idea like at LuLaRoe that you can have your own business, you too can do it.
I mean, like the MLMs are part of it. I don't conceive of people who are part of MLMs as girl bosses, but I think that narrative.
They preach this.
But like people who are like online business coaches or that sort of like you can live anywhere and make $1 million and you can be a nomadic tech person, like be your own boss, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I think of it. What do you think of it?
Yeah. You know what that reminds me of too, of your favorite person. What's this white woman name who was married to the guy from Disney?
Just Wash Your Face?
Girl, stop apologizing. Girl, wash your face.
She is not my favorite. I
thought you really liked her.
No.
I'm trolling you. I know you do not like this woman.
I mean, I have a lot of compassion. Her ex-husband killed himself, but like, no, I don't like her. But I think of her, right? This idea of people making a lot of money off of other people's pain, kind of.
That's how you associate and kind of would distinguish girl boss lean in.
Yeah, like I don't think of I don't think of like CEOs of corporations as who are female as girl bosses.
Interesting. So, but I think part of the distinction that you're making is because of the age and because of the industry, to
Yeah,
to
yeah,
your
yeah.
point, right? Because Sophia Amoruso, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, who wrote Girl Boss, who started Nasty Gal, looks very different from Sheryl Sandberg in her formal time,
Mhm.
her time at
Meta.
Facebook and Meta, now Meta. Um, yeah, these are two, at least maybe generationally and definitely superficially, two very different people. But I think the umbrella is still the same. It's kind of this idea of acting like a man and positioning yourself as a man to get ahead. So here's what I turned to the internet and what they had to say about just girl boss culture, to summarize it in general. We wanted, talking about society.
This is Sophia Amoruso.
Yep, Sophia Amoruso. And so this is about her memoir, Girl Boss. We wanted the boss to fix everything that was wrong in our workplaces: the competitiveness, the workaholism, the fraternity style sexist collegiality, the racism. The girl boss was supposed to represent a change in the workplace, but more than that, she was supposed to bring that change to the workplace. But instead, she was right at home there within all these workaholic, toxic, patriarchal structures, and we couldn't forgive her for it. And I think that last sentence is really important because from what I have been reading and consuming, there is a big blowback, Margot, among Gen Z against this whole kind of girl boss millennial construct and this idea that you are supposed to show up in a workplace in a very particular way. The Gen Zers are not having it, and the number of kind of satirical TikToks that exist out there going off about this mindset are too many to name. It is a whole subculture that is happening right now.
So what are the Gen Zers doing? I mean, I
So
get they're making fun of us, but
they're
like,
which is very embarrassing for me, not because I consider myself to be a girl boss, but because I didn't know this was happening, that we were old enough
yeah.
to be made fun of.
So are they working?
They are, but here's what they would say. And we would love for our Gen Zers to sound off in the comments. What I surmise is that they're saying, yeah, 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 go to work, but we don't have to replicate certain norms.
Mm.
And I don't know that they would have an anti-capitalist mindset in mind. Some of them may, some of them may not. But what I see it as, they are really coming hard for the economic system that has given rise to these conditions. So it feels to me that they have a much more structural analysis than we ever did. We're saying put on the pantsuit a la Hillary Clinton. We're saying lean into their corporate culture. We're saying just boss up to be like a white cisgender straight man. They're saying, actually, I don't want any of that because it is all problematic. I want to take care of myself and earn a living wage, and it shouldn't be this fucking hard to do so.
Okay. Well, teach me how to do that.
So this is what they're saying. Girl, I was reading this and I was like, I am, girl, the dragorization. This is what they're saying. The girl boss is effectively a millennial Karen, only 10 years younger and a better haircut. I said, shit. Instead of making a fuss with the manager, this bitch is the manager, exclusively looking out for her own interests while ignoring the needs of her overworked and underpaid employees. Just gonna sip my tea here because it sounds like somebody edges got eviscerated. Because if you are a millennial and if you can't resonate with that in some way, either in your own behavior or what you've witnessed, you're being dishonest.
Oh, completely. Completely. And I think, to give the geriatric millennials and millennials some grace, because I think this is true. And I think we also were socialized or taught how to work in the shadows of baby boomers.
Ooh, bring this in, yes.
And particularly baby boomer women were so traumatized by the workplace, are so traumatized by it. They can't give it up. They're so addicted
Yeah.
to it because it was so hard to enter and stay and advance. And they shattered all these glass ceilings and they like clawed their way up, that they have not given themselves the space to reflect on how traumatized they are and how they replicated that when training us.
Absolutely.
And then we just worked in that shadow.
And hopefully, didn't make as many of the same mistakes, but clearly mistakes have been made.
Oh, for sure.
Because I think anytime you take on changing yourself versus changing a system, this is a possibility.
Can I also add something into the chat,
Yes.
which I think I was thinking about the other day? Like, our perspective as Americans and work is so American and so individualistic,
100%.
right? Like, we think about our trajectory, our professional roles, our income, our grade level. Are you vice president? Are you president? Right? Like, where are you going? What certifications do you have? How is this a jumping off point to the next place? Versus like, how is this benefiting my family or my ecosystem or my community? And like, how am I showing up to like provide for the communal good? Because we don't have a community in the same way. Like,
Yeah.
we're all so isolated in our own world. And like, there's a reason we're so individually focused, but it's also come at such a cost.
And I think some of us do have that, but concurrently, they're also not the most successful people. Because when I think of the life experiences of a lot of my family members and friends who have remained in my small hometown, who have working class jobs and backgrounds, who are kind of a step outside of poverty, they have beautiful and vibrant communities. But everything about ambition socializes you out of that. Because what I knew was I had to remain in or adjacent to a major city to get ahead.
Same, for sure.
And what
No
is that
choice.
done? What has that done to me over the years and having had chosen to be isolated, the one who is the farthest away from my family? And I think about that so much now, especially as my grandparents age. I made sacrifices for my career that I should not have had to make.
Well, yes. And I think a lot of people feel that way,
Yeah.
particularly geographic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so it's almost like if you want to strive to the next level, to be ambitious, to lean in, is synonymous with a level of sacrifice. And what I find is that when it comes down to the workplace, if you have not made the same sacrifices, then you just must not want it bad enough. And here's where my inter-Republican comes into play. Because I can fall on my sword and say, as someone who is a recovering workaholic, okay, relapse is part of recovery, Margo. So I'm gonna
Healing
say
is not linear,
recovering,
people.
a period. I know I look at people often and I'm like, well, you get a job. You could have it if you just work hard enough. Why get off the couch, go to work?
But can it be both?
I think so.
I mean, I don't think it's like an either or sort of thing, right? Like, I also feel like I have a very unhealthy relationship with work and how my identity is so wrapped into my job and
Yeah.
and like unraveling that and feeling like a worthwhile and that I'm doing like valuable work for humanity and being a parent and all that stuff. We don't need to get into it, but you don't get the things without hard work. Right? So like, it can be both.
There is a skill set, tenacity, fortitude. These are soft skills that are very important.
And sometimes you just have to work really fucking hard. Like, to get what you want, if it is something you want, you have to put your nose down and do it. And so I am also an inner Republican in this way, and I think that Gen Z doesn't always have it right. I think they've gotten it right and hit a nerve here, right? that our generation does have a really unhealthy relationship with work, that we were trained and socialized to want to be a girl boss
Yeah.
without really understanding the sacrifices
That came along
that
with
came
that.
along with that, and we are bearing the burden of that.
And I would say also the norms that we were perpetuating.
Right.
So the things that created the need for a girl boss, we did not challenge. Instead, we just said,
Sure.
it's much like it is the, I think, feminine version of respectability politics, right? So in the Black community, it is why your hair those colors, why your nails so long, pull your pants up, stop talking like that, why you ain't married and you had a child. Okay, replace all of those things with a similar narrative, but about what it means for a woman to show up at work. Where in both examples, what we've missed is it's not the individuals, it is the conditions.
Correct. Because we're being asked to show up and work like a man, which we're not.
And it also ignores the real life responsibilities that continue to be part of the gender norms that women have that men do not.
And I would say that our generation has broken a lot more of those gender norms than the generation before us, right? So there are a lot more, particularly in cis hetero relationships, right? There are a lot
For
more
sure.
very, very, very involved fathers, but not so many that the workplace, there's paternity leave, but which didn't,
Yeah.
some companies have paternity leave, which, our parents' generation didn't have. But workplace dynamics haven't bent so far towards the engaged parent so that it makes a difference.
I have a friend who was told her boss denied her ability to work remotely pre-pandemic. I think now people have much more, some environments have more lenient policies because he said that her child was at home during the day. Mind you, her partner, her husband at that time was a stay-at-home dad. But because she is a woman and her child was at home during the day, not even under her supervision, he denied her ability to work from home. I think that is probably the most blatant example of the kind of responsibilities that we have. Even when we are going to work and putting our best foot forward, there are still limitations simply because of our gender.
Totally. But how does this wrap back into like girl boss and online culture? Because I think it it has become really dangerous.
Yeah, and I also think that this is why the TikTokers are just sick of the shits, and also why TikTokers are sick of Instagram, because that's where a lot of that curation that you're talking about comes from. I see it more there than I do on TikTok. But one of the things that they have coined, which actually we talked about in a previous episode when it came down to Z-Way in her interview
With George Santos.
So they are the ones on TikTok who coined this idea of, I think I may have girl boss a bit too close to the sun. That phrase is used in a lot of different contexts. It's kind of like, I have too much on my plate today. Why did I put all of this on my plate? I think I girl boss too close to the sun. I have an 18-hour course load this semester and I'm taking stats. I girl boss too close to the sun. It's this idea of I recognize that I place unrealistic expectations on myself. They have placed that under the girl boss category.
Interesting.
Girl bossed too close to the sun, which we know obviously means either you're going to get burned or you're going to fall from the sky. But that there's actually no winner when we are too hard on ourselves
Expect too much from ourselves.
and we don't make time for self-care. I mean, right or wrong, this is their interpretation of that entire culture. And mind you, when they talk about what it means to be in a workplace with someone who has accepted this norm, I mean, Gen Z are adults, right? They are post-college at this point. They are working under people our age. So these are their real life experiences, whether we think they are right or wrong.
So it's funny that you say that because I'm on a board of an organization, and one of the things that we've talked about is hiring. And the ED, who's brilliant, said, look, hiring is harder now. And you guys can complain about Gen Zers not having a good work ethic or expecting too much. But I'm going to tell you, it is harder to hire and it's harder to retain, and they need more support. So you're going to give it to me. And it was like, right, it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, at some point.
Like, we need to staff this organization and we need to staff it well. And if what the employees are saying is that they need more support,
Then that's
who
just
are
what
we
it
to
is.
say that they don't?
And also this idea that Gen Z is just lazy and not working hard enough. Some of that is true individually. I mean, that's true of every generation.
Yeah,
There have been
sure.
people who have
Yeah,
not
of
worked
course.
hard. But I wonder if part of that categorical criticism is because they are challenging that boomer mentality.
Mhm.
That I think like it has to erode. It has to crack, Margo. This idea of going to work, staying on a job for 30 years, retiring, having a pension and a 401k, paying off a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, and then you die. It just does not exist for too many fucking people. You cannot, interest rates are 7% right now.
I know.
That is crazy, Margo. So they are clear that this is not working. The economic system ain't working.
Right, the system isn't systeming. Like, right, like,
Right.
right, like the whole way people make money lots of different ways. But the idea of making money through real estate, for example, doesn't work the same way as it did 5 years ago,
Girl.
8 years ago,
Girl.
15 years ago, right? And so you can't buy a $500,000 home now for the same price that you could 5 years
And that's
ago.
just what it is. And these are things that are outside of the everyday person's control. I don't work down at the institution at the Federal Reserve. I fucking wish I did. And people who look like me don't either. And that's something I do want to enter into this, because whereas I can own a certain amount of kind of like the tropes that I may have bought into, the reality is when it comes down to even girl boss culture, what it also missed was a class and a race analysis, because the Sheryl Sandbergs and the Sophia Amorusos of the world, for every one of them, every 10 of them, there may be one Black woman, one woman of color that fits into that category. And so that also, I think, is the challenges of what may present as white feminism, that too often it is not intersectional in its approach.
Right. And what a white woman in a position of power had to do to get there was a marginal percentage of what a Black woman in that same position
Exactly.
had to do. So, yeah.
And very often, once a white woman will get into that position, there is still a fear, by speaking of Black women in my community, that she's not really going to ride for me.
Right.
Right. There's something about race that will trump gender and any similarities that we have in that way. And so I think for us, we were already on the outside looking in, trying to overcome so many barriers to get there. I mean, look at Claudine Gay as an example. She girl bossed too close to the sun, and we see what happened.
Because she was ambitious.
I don't think because she was ambitious. I think because someone would say that she believed that the system was going to change, and it showed her that it was not. That is what some would say. Do I believe she should have been forced to resign? Absolutely not.
No. I know that.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I just like, when we're thinking about like systems and systems of oppression, this kind of, I think, this post-racial society that we aspire to be at this point. So we're so far from it that it's almost like we're farther behind than we were even 10 years ago.
Well, I think I would argue that that's intentional, actually, because I think in my mind, I see social justice as a pendulum. And I think it depending on the decade, depending on the time, it swings in either direction. I don't think that it truly ever makes gains without also making sacrifices, without also peeling those gains back.
So let's talk then, I agree with you, about how this and the kind of tropes and narratives and kind of hardships that we've created around girl bosses have moved to trad wives.
Okay, so this, I think, is going to have to be a whole other episode, just in the interest of time, because I'm interested in digging deeper into this whole trad wives thing.
I'm not.
I really am. Margo, you don't want to know how the other side really thinks?
No, I actually do. I read a book.
So exactly.
I do,
so
but
you're coming.
I read a book that sounds like I have a Black friend.
I know enough.
I know. But I read The Women of the Far Right, which is a book called, The Women of the Far Right, Social Media Influencers and Online Radicalization, which is about how the far right used some trad wife narratives and individual influencers, female influencers, to red pill people to the right.
So this is fascinating and we have to know
Right.
this.
And what I have seen also in the wellness community is that there's this movement towards like holistic living, functional medicine, which we don't even really know what that means. But then where that goes is like anti-vaxxers,
QAnon.
right? Homeschooling. Da, 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 da. So girl bosses who stay at home, who have online businesses where they can make money to support their family and homeschool their kids and grow a garden and cook all the food and like rub their babies in castor oil are at a heightened level of success.
Okay. So I see that connection. My connection is I believe that Gen Zers, people are always looking for something to make sense of the world. That's just what it is, right?
That's why people join cults.
And everyone has a filter, right? By which they see the world. May it be religion, may it be justice principles, may it be feminism. There's some ideological perspective that we all have that either it was created by a bunch of shit or someone gave it to us. I think that Gen Zers say, okay, I don't want that, right? They've gone through a pandemic. They've seen a downturn in the market. They can't buy a house. They can't fucking afford to rent. So now they're asking themselves, if girl boss culture isn't it, then what does this whole idea of feminism truly mean anyway? Did I ever even really want that thing? And so that's where I think the younger generation of trad wives have entered the chat, because on TikTok, Margo, these women are young.
Yes, they're in their 20s.
These are young. So here's what Estee Williams, a very popular TikTok trad wife, had to say. Not all trad wives are alike. And in Estee's eyes, she would say trad wives are homemakers whose priority is cooking, cleaning, and being subservient to men. But such submission, she says, isn't degrading. It is her choice.
Right.
Margo, what's your thought on that? Can subservience be a choice?
No. I don't think subservience can be a choice. This is the whole predicate of this book that I was talking about. I think you can convince yourself that it's a choice, but when someone is subservient, there's an inherent power dynamic where one person has more power than the other. So yeah, you can choose to get into that relationship, but once you're in that relationship and you are subservient, you don't have a choice about how to be. And evolution and change, whether it be in the professional sphere, in the home sphere, in the sexual sphere, is something that you can't experience if you're subservient. So no, I don't think it's a choice. I also think it's total bullshit.
Okay, tell us why.
Because, so I know what people are going to come after me for this. And it is not, I am not saying working from, like being a homemaker is bullshit. It is so hard. I could never do it. Like the responsibilities, the physical labor associated with maintaining a home, taking care of children, and doing all the physical labor associated with cooking and cleaning is way more difficult in my mind for someone like me than having a job outside of the home.
Okay.
So it is not condemning that. But what it is, where I do like split ways with this narrative, is that feminism isn't the problem. Like they have coined feminism and feminist pursuits as this violent act that has been imposed and pushed down their throats. And where I part ways with that is that feminism, in my mind, is asking for equality.
Yeah.
What about you?
Girl. So I've been struggling with this, Margo, not in the case of the trad wives necessarily, because I don't see as many Black people showing up in that space, but I do see them showing up as femininity coaches. I see them pushing submission on different platforms, talking about what it means to be submissive. There's a very popular artist who, Tobe Nwigwe. who I actually stopped following him when I heard his wife say that, and she's a prominent part of his platform, but I heard her say that first it's God, then it's Tobe, and then it's her. And he's also just had some really problematic things, I think, to say about her and the origins of their relationship. And I just thought to myself, who taught you that? That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my life. And it sickens me because what happens is Black women are very often told the reason you can't find a man is because you want to be too much like a man. Dog whistling to this idea of submission. Back to our earlier episodes where this whole podcast talked about the reason that my relationship ended to who they assumed was a man was because I wasn't stepping into my
Femininity.
stepping into my feminine. Same thing. All this trad wife shit, it has different colors, but it's the same thing.
So where kind of I,
Can I say something?
yeah.
I think all of this is nothing more than a blowback from the right. It is the pendulum swinging in a different direction. And I think every single gain that we have attempted to make is being peeled back before our eyes. And you have to do nothing more than look at our young people to see the evidence of that. To have a 21-year-old say that she seeks to be subservient to her man, that is coming from somewhere. And I don't want to be conspiratorial about it, but if we don't have to dig too far down the internet to find the ways that the anti-critical race theory bills, the don't say gay bills, all of these things, in my mind, are happening at the same time. It is a very precarious time for people who think like us.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's fake news people.
Mm.
Like, look, existing in this world is hard. Being in relationship is hard. Being partnered and married is hard and beautiful. And being a parent is hard and beautiful. And this idea that you can do it in a traditional way to do it right is a farce.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the narrative that's being sold. Like, oh, we've screwed up our kids because we've like pushed feminism or we've pushed equality or we've pushed the workforce. And really, if you just step into your feminine, if you just like lay down for your husband at night in this particular way and like make him his dinner that he wants, your life will be perfect.
And
it's a narrative.
It's a narrative that is not true and also did not exist for everyone during that time period. Because many women of color and people, all women, also worked outside of the home.
Always. And there's also those who didn't. Hello, Stepford Wives, Quaaludes, and like the 4 o'clock drink. Like,
Yes.
there were a lot of really miserable homemakers in the 50s and 60s.
So I think it goes back to your point about it's not about hearkening back to this, time bygone. It's about creating a healthy world, society, life, relationship.
Right. So it shouldn't be that for you to be present with your kids, you can't work.
Exactly.
Right. Or you have to live on a farm. Or you have to like I know we're consuming different media, but I think I think we're saying the same thing. Like, it's not either or, right? The Gen Zers have it right that we have a toxic relationship with work and what it means to be a successful professional person in the world.
Yes.
And I think the trad wives have it wrong, or that narrative is misplaced.
Yeah.
That to be a good partner, a good parent, a healthy person, you have to live off the grid.
Or you have to convince everyone else that they are doing it wrong. And it's because we've lost our morality. That society has gone to hell in a handbasket. And so again, I go back to the idea that we started this conversation with regarding the structural roots. All of this could be changed if we focus instead on fixing the structures at play around how we define work, the 40-hour work week, the pay differentials that exist in this society. There are real things around the labor market and the economic system that can fucking change.
Mhm.
We live in a world that is in a society that is completely absent of regulations. Almost everything besides air in America is privatized. There are many of societies that do not have that example, right? Things about how we relate to each other financially in this world, the consumption that we experience, all of that could change.
Totally.
It doesn't have to be me coming home and cooking my man dinner.
Yeah. So can I tell you something? Because before I even heard about trad wives, so my friend Morgan sent me a a podcast by the guy from Queer Eye for the Straight Guy,
Okay. Which one?
Jonathan, the
The
hairdresser.
one with the hair. Yes.
Yeah.
He's beautiful.
Yeah. So he was interviewing this author
Oh, okay.
about trad wives. And my friend Morgan from college sent it to me and she was like, I'd really love to talk to you about this. What do you think? And then because my phone is listening to me, when I logged onto Instagram that day, there was this trad wife with rollers in her hair and a baby on her hip making muffins. And I thought it was a joke. Like, I thought it was cosplay.
Oh, because another thing is that they do definitely, like, they oftentimes have this pinup style, very retro fashion.
Right. It's like with the apron and the curls and the like making blueberry muffins for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a joke, right? And then I looked at this person's platform and it's not a joke. This is her life.
Mm-hmm. And while it's not cosplay, it is cosplay. Because in my mind, you're still pretending to be something that is not authentic to the time and place that we're in. Like you're having to go back and to find a lens by which you understand the world. And when we do that, it is just very scary to me.
But speaking back to our prior episode about confidence, right? It is much easier to be told what to do,
Hey, come on, Shundo.
right? Than to be like, you know what feels right for me? I'm going to make blueberry muffins for my family today, and I'm going to go out with my friends tonight.
Yep.
Or I'm going to do this, and I'm going to ask my husband to do this.
Right.
Or I'm going to, I'm going to take some time for myself, and he's going to take some time for himself. Or we're going to do something together, and we're going to make this decision about our family's resources together, or how we're going to invest our money, or where our kids are going to go to school, or who we're going to spend time with. But and it's not always 50-50, but it's certainly not like 20-80. And if it's sometimes 20-80, it's the other way. I'm 80, he's 20.
What I have taken from you today, Margo, is this idea that subservience and submission, by definition, cannot be a choice. Because to do it is antithetical to the idea of having choices.
Right? So, like, you can be, like, it's not like this is the tough part about talking about feminism because how we learn or how I learned about feminism was like in this like second wave movement of white feminist women who like put on their pantyhose and were like crushing glass ceilings.
Yeah.
That's one version.
Yeah.
But feminism also is knowing yourself and knowing what you want.
Well, because I think to your point about the boomer generation is that we have come away from that, right? It's
It
all
doesn't
of
work.
these other variations have had to exist because it does not work. And it was also very myopic in its focus. Anytime we're just focused on one part of ourselves, I think we're doomed to fail. And if your feminism centers around your job and making lots of money, there likely is something that's going to be wrong with that, especially when it comes down to preaching to a whole generation of people about it. It's going to have limitations, right? Because we don't all start at the same place.
And I think like we're picking up crumbs, right?
Always. And we're fighting over those crumbs.
Right. And so women of the boomer generation who identified as feminists found a lot of their feminism through the workplace outside of the home. And I think what millennial women have the choice to do now is reconstruct how they view feminism and how it shows up in their life. Where I worry about the next generation of women, particularly birthing women, is the idea that they're choosing a life where they don't have a choice.
They're choosing not to have a choice. So here's the thing, you guys. We are not saying that the girl boss culture had it right. Clearly, we agree with the limitations that have been outlined by the the vocal members of Gen Z and others. But I think where Margot and I definitely staunchly stand is that this move to push conservative values is taking us in the wrong direction, and we're really, really concerned about that. So, so,
So what do
so what do we do?
what do Gen Zers who like I just feel like there's like two opposite poles of where Gen Zers are going. It's like the trad cis hetero like getting married right after high school, pushing out babies and living whatever. And then there's a lot of Gen Zers who are choosing what the boomers would call alternative lifestyles, like not getting married, being in non monogamous, polyamorous relationships,
Relationships. Yep.
maybe choosing not to birth children because it's too expensive or the environment is combusting, right? Not having traditional jobs. And then there's just this question I have about like who
What's in the middle?
what's in the middle? Like who's the middle?
Who's in the middle? And I definitely want to hear from people who don't have the same access and privileges that's in the middle. Because in my mind, if I was 21 today, definitely the trad wife shit would not land with me. But I also wouldn't feel resourced and privileged enough to do the other thing either.
Mhm.
Because I would think to myself, my family does not have the resources for me not to get this shit right. Right. And I don't have a place to go that feels comfortable for me. I can't go back to Bartow, Florida and exist. Right. Geographically, I'm too isolated to truly be happy there. I can't be queer there openly. Right. Like, what am I back then? What am I going to do to build a life for myself? And to your point, I don't know that I would have felt that I saw myself reflected in anything. So what would I create from the in between?
I don't know.
So we love to hear from you all on this point.
Particularly those who like have a deeper understanding of what's happening around trad wives and its opposition to girl boss culture, people who are making choices not to enter the traditional workforce. We want to hear from you. You know, in many ways, Tashara and I are late adopters of the early adoption.
Of the
Right,
internet, for sure. At
right.
41 and 42, we
Right.
are.
And so we have started something later in our career that many Gen Zers would want to start earlier in their career.
And are starting now, right? So I have a family friend who I'm constantly having conversations with about having a job in the online economy. That wasn't an option for us when we were 21 years old. Like, we were
Right.
still using dial-up shit.
Right.
So yes, there so much has changed about the world. And I think in order for us, and I hope this is something that we share as far as it being important, Margot, but in order for us to be, I think, proudly and boldly who we are and know that we are also speaking to a younger audience, it's important for us to know what are those pressure points and what are those pain points for young people.
Absolutely. And also where we got it wrong, right? Because I take full responsibility for that role because I know that the boomers didn't play it for us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not lost. Like, we still can take on that active mentoring role, which is one that I truly value. But what behaviors have we normalized? I know I didn't set an example of like healthy work-life balance for my students.
Mm. Mm.
And on the other hand, being a litigator isn't really healthy work-life balance.
In and of itself.
Right. So again, it's like what's aspirational, what's realistic, and where do you fall in how you choose to live your life?
And what message can we signal? Because maybe for a time period, it might be more of do what I say and not as I do. And I wonder if that's where we start. You know, I have made some decisions that have put myself and my family in a very specific situation as far as work is concerned. But for younger generations, you don't have to be like me. And here are ways that you might want to think about doing it differently.
Or like there are some benefits. I mean, I don't know because I don't have a corporate job, but like there are some benefits to like having a corporate job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I also don't
Right. So
want,
I think that's where sometimes I think Gen Zers might get it wrong,
yeah.
right? That there are benefits towards there are obvious benefits about having financial security, having a 401k, having PTO, having leave, having a 401k match that you're not going to get by
in the gig economy.
Mm-mm.
But I mean, that's why it has existed for so long. So it goes back to
Right.
what structural changes do we seek to change and how can we get there?
And how can we help people change them?
All right, come to our live taping, you all. We are going on tour, and I feel like these are the kind of conversations that we need to have with an audience, right,
Yes,
Margo?
because we need, I remember the last live taping we had in DC, and people shared their experiences about showing up. We talked about showing up as yourself in a
Yes,
workplace
absolutely.
and what that meant in different workplaces, and particularly in DC where there's so many government employees. It was a very interesting conversation.
And we need to be in community to work
Absolutely.
through these issues together. So thank you all for listening. Sound off below in the comments if you're watching. Leave us a comment if you are listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, friend.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Justice. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to learn more about our podcast, be sure to check us out on our website at justicepodcast.com. You can also reach out to us there if you want to be featured on the show, or if you have a business or a product that you think would be a good fit for our audience. Thanks again for listening.